Greetings of the day. Welcome for the day two, and today we are going to cover the preliminary phase of the TOGAF ADM and the architecture principles and how the architecture principles do help in the TOGAF. So let me share my screen. Okay. Okay. So welcome to the day two. I want to begin with the topic that we discussed yesterday a little bit, which is on the architecture governance. And as we all know, how governance is very important. Governance is the phase where every organization should have a before thought rather than a afterthought. Okay, so let me take a quick glimpse what we discussed yesterday. We discussed about what is TOGAF and how TOGAF ADM can be implemented in the organization. And we have seen a couple of examples about how a TOGAF ADM can be used as a tool, what is the scope of the ADM and the principles which are being used. On discussing on yesterday's points, there were also a part where we discussed that when any vision is shared by the CEO, it gets on the table of the CTO, and the CTO takes the requirement, breaks down the vision into a blueprint, and sits with an chief enterprise architect to prepare a proper roadmap and have a governance place. The importance of the architecture governance is to maintain the risk, have the risk before thought than having it after thought. Because if a governance is delayed, when it becomes an afterthought, it becomes very costly. The project gets delayed, and with lot of other issues, it is not a good practice to have it in first place. So let's begin. So today's topic is extremely favorite, one of my area, which is architecture governance. And in this area, today we are going to divide into two beautiful topics. One is the preliminary phase, okay, and the second is the architecture principles. Now, we all know that we have to start the tool somewhere from the top, which is the preliminary phase. When we talk about the ADM 9 phases, preliminary is the base phase of everything. It is the top of all the ADM phases, where we also discussed a example of a couple. When they decide to get married, they need to have um what is this meant for, how it is going to look in the future, and it is not just going to be for the short term. So let's begin with the preliminary phase. When we talk about the preliminary phase, I'm going to share a same example what we saw yesterday, which was the TOGAF main diagram, and I have blown up the preliminary phase. And today we are going to deep dive on the preliminary phase. So let's begin. Okay. And okay, so on the left side of my screen, if you can see, there is a diagram where we have a preliminary phase, which is the beginning of the tool. Okay, and all other phases are grayed out on intention, because we are just going to focus on the preliminary phase today on the left side. And on the right side, if you see, there is a preliminary phase which is blown up, which is having all the detail phases or the processes in place to break down how this preliminary phase is going to help us when we are trying to put the input, when we are trying to put the enablers, when we are trying to shorten the context, when we are trying to put the scope of the work. And when the scope of the work gets processed into the preliminary phase, how the output is getting generated. So the main intention to blow up the preliminary phase is to have navigation from 1 to 7 phases in here. Okay. So if we check, going back to the main mind map, The main intention of a preliminary phase is to prepare. This is the foremost preparation of the entire project or the requirement that we have received from the CTO or the CEO. When we receive the preparation, we also check on the capabilities, what kind of capabilities will be required. And we also discussed yesterday that the capabilities are mapped based on two things. One, is this a new requirement or is this an existing one? When we have the capabilities mapped into the competencies, skills, maturity of the tools that we are using, and are those scalable or not? Are we ready with it or not? And how infrastructure is supporting the vision and the requirement that we have received. Now, when we talk about all these five phases in the capabilities, maturity is one of the critical area that we should focus in the capabilities, because let's say we start a project, but if we don't have a competent team to produce the same what is given to us, then there will be delays, because the team is not up to date with the knowledge or with the skills that is required to do this requirement. Let's say an example of a AI. When we talk about AI today, LLM, RAGs, agents are a must, but if we have a team with tools and technology which is not up to the mark with the AI, guess what? We won't be able to deliver it on time, or we will have some lag, and we will have the definite curves, learning curves, as we all know in the industry. So, in order to avoid that, we need to call it out in the beginning when we are preparing the capabilities and mapping the skills towards it. When we talk about the maturity, how does the maturity happen? So let's say we are into a banking domain, and in the banking domain, we have this project for, let's say, 3 to 4 years. Then automatically, even if it is a development project, if it is a maintenance project, right? In these cases as well, when there is a repetition of any kind of a work or a task or a requirement, you become consistent, you become more knowledgeable, and you can scale from that space because it is not new. And innovations also take a lot because you have lot of basis towards it. Next come the governance also plays an important part in the maturity, because guess what, those many number of tickets which are solved before, the number of tickets will get less in the same space. And the benchmark, obviously, let's say you have done project for 3 years in the core banking area, so you have already set your industry standards on the functionalities, on the technologies, and the use cases that customer is going to give. So when you are mature, you are more having the measures on the benchmark, you are having more robust governance framework, and you are more in a repeatable stage because it is not new and you can do it naturally. So that is the main focus in a preliminary phase. Next comes the principles. When we talk about the principles, we have to make sure that we are using the TOGAF principles here when we are mapping the requirement and the enablers to the requirement which is shared by the CTO. I want to take an example of yesterday that we discussed, that when a piece of requirement is given to an a person who is having a wider vision and a one who is having a systems vision, where he goes and builds the four walls, right? And the A person goes and looks at the specification of the landscape. He measures is what kind of people are going to stay there, and what the weather is going to be, and how many people are going to stay, and then he starts building this landscape. So there are two major differences, and on the basis on the same example, I want to continue and highlight on this point. When we talk about the governance, which means that we need to have the plumbing in the place first rather than having the walls. What it means that when we have a well connected designed maps, well connected integration patterns called out, and we know what is going to be the output, and just not the output, but we also should be very much flexible and very much natural to us if we can scale up or if required to scale down. So that is the example I want to bring. I want to share a very close and dear story to me, which is one with one of the banks where I worked with like 7, 8 years before. And this bank was going through the preliminary phase. Now, when we talk about the preliminary phase, we saw the 7 phases, right? This 7 phases, when this bank was working, there was no output visible. There were no websites or no dashboards or no use case which was POC'd to a customer. So we are going to deep dive into the preliminary phase again from here. Okay. And I want to mark it as a green because this is the most valuable part in this session. This is one of it, and there are a couple of more which is coming up. So this is the valuable thing. I will go again back to the diagram that we discussed. I think the diagram is here. Let's go here. And I'm going to blow up a little bit. So let's say we have received the banking requirement. When we have received the banking requirement, we have certainly received the scope. Now, in this scope, either it is going to be a completely a new project, which is certainly called digital transformation. Some set of processes were manually. Now they are going to do it in a digital form. When we have this in a digital form, then we start making the requirements. We start involving the business, the stakeholders. Right now, when we it if it is a complete transformation or if it is just an enhancement, let's say we have existing banking application and they want to add couple of more products to it, right, in case of loans or borrowings and so on and so forth, then this scope is very clear. There is some piece of the bank is already there, and there are couple of more things which are present. The couple of more thing is the loans and the borrowings. Now, in our example, in the scope of project, loans and the borrowings are the two products we are going to launch in our banking application. Okay. So in order to have the loans and the borrowings, we have to have a specific framework for the governance. We need to have a specific um, capabilities. We need to have a specific set of stakeholders for that. Now, in the step number 2, we need to call out who is going to govern this entire process, who is going to take care of the stakeholders, and who will be the decision makers. When we set the governance, we also need to take a sign off from the executive sponsorship that we have set the governance, and these are the decision makers, and this is how it is going to look from the budget perspective. The third phase, which is talking about define and establish the architecture teams, here the main role of the capabilities come in the picture. When we talk about the capabilities, we also automatically get the names of the people. Let's say this is a Java driven project, right? So all the existing resources which are required for this project will automatically come because we have already worked with them. So the names automatically come. We need 3 key people or 2 mid type skilled people, or we can have one for the non-critical or reporting monitoring purposes. So like that, our mind automatically comes through the capabilities and the skills and the important key people who are going to drive these enablers for the loans and the borrowing project. When we have those kind of a capabilities in the place, so this is going to be a development team. The second piece important is going to be, is this infrastructure in the organization going to support the loans and the borrowings that we are looking out? Now, how we are going to measure that? Let's say this bank is already a non-retail banking system, and the loans and the borrowings are a part of it. It doesn't require any third party authentication. If there is any third party authentication, let's say they introduced a KYC. Okay, so be it on-site bank or be it in domestic in India, we know that KYC requires a third party authentication. So when we require the third party authentication, who are the called out vendors? How is the vendor management done? How are the stakeholders management done? So that will be another set of the team. So first will be the developers and the resources. Then we have the stakeholders team. Uh, Now this is a vendor stakeholder. The next set of piece will come as a our own C-suite members, which is required for this sign-offs, main sign-offs. Then we will have a set of EAs, which is also required if there are any major EA changes, or if any many some exceptions come in future, right? We need that. Then we also need a PMO team and the PMs to take care of this requirement. So, like this, we have all the key stakeholders and team established in the third phase. Now, identify and establish the architecture principles. Now, we will go through the quadrilla's. When I talk about the quadrilla's, is about the TOGAF standards I'm talking about. I'm also talking about all the NFRs, and I'm also talking about what are the existing loans and the borrowings which is happening in the other areas of the bank. If there is, and if it is set and benchmark, then obviously we can go and adopt it instead of reinventing the wheel. So let's do that. So if there is nothing, then we have to create it. Now when we are creating any new thing, I want to highlight a very important point. We as leaders, we always tend, if there is something in place, let's copy paste it. But there is nothing more danger than just copy pasting it. Why? Because let's say there is a bank and there is established B bank. When we have a established B bank where they already have this loans and borrowing, we tend to copy paste the same thing in our bank, which is the dangerous thing, and we forget what our customer is actually looking for. So a lot of time the transformation fails or the requirement fails because we try to copy others. So we have to be, we can copy, but it should map to our requirements, so that due diligence, that intellect, and those kind of wisdom should automatically come, that these are my requirement and this is going to fit. If it is going to fit the puzzle, nothing like that, you can straight away do that. But that should come, because we are so wrapped up in our own clouds, in our own world, we just, forget to go through the checklist and what are the requirements and how it should map. Now coming back to our topic at step number 5, when we have something like that and we kick off, we need to have our own TOGAF framework. What I mean by that is, since this requirement, if we are trying to copy from other bank, it should beautifully fit into our puzzle. It shouldn't be, okay, they are doing loans, borrowings, and let's say one more application on the insurance side. I'm just giving example. So we do not need three of the things from them. We just need to have the two things, and which are the most important things. So we just should drill down, narrow down the full focus to just pick up those two things and implement it here. And also we have to go through our business architects and the experts in the area and walk them through that this is what we are trying to do. Until and unless we marry the business and the strategy, we cannot establish a preliminary solid base, because this is the foundation and the base of the entire project. So it has to be very, very crisp and to the point, and we should be always having the updates on top of our mind. The second, another piece is, we need to have a strategy. As I mentioned, when we come across from 1 to 7, okay, we often forget what is our strategy, what is our vision. If all this is fitting and the strategy what we have, let's say we have a strategy of delivering this particular piece of code in 18 months, but is this the best strategy? Is this the best output that we can give it to the customer? Now we are into AI world. Is there something I can give extra to the customer, where customer can earn? As we saw in yesterday's example, I mentioned that if we can have couple of more features, or have something where customer or the bank will earn some money, on which obviously they will have a benefit, are we going to have such kind of a strategies? When and on strategy, I'm going to take another session. Strategy is the utmost important thing that we should have as a EA when we are strategizing. Because until and unless you have good strategy, you won't be able to drive this completely. It is as good as we are just doing the lifting and the shifting as a labor, a brick lift and a brick shift, but there is no strategy. But if we have a strategy where, let's say, if I have a cart where I can, if I have a capacity to just pick 8 bricks at a time, it is a manual effort. But if I have something in my hand which can take, let's say, 100 bricks in a cart, a big cart, then that's a strategy. And if there is a another big cart which can maybe 500 bricks at a time, I'm just giving an example to make you understand about strategy, then that is a faster one. But and at the same time, it should be also comfortable with our technical teams and business teams, and of course the users. So we need to have those kind of a strategy. When strategy is in a place and we come from a place to have the value given to the customer, then this strategy automatically gives a very good result at the end of the project. And then when we develop this strategy, we have the plans, the tools and the techniques, and then we start doing our, is it agile, is it a project, is it another hybrid one, or the iterative model of the project, or be it whatever. So these preliminary steps from 1 to 7 are the crucial, and we need to have, in every phase we need to know that what is the input we are going to place and what is the output we are going to receive. So if we check here, this is the same diagram as yesterday, and for some reason uh, this is not moving. Okay. So organization context we have seen what are the business drivers and existing architecture capacity. Is this the existing project or this is a new pace, new one, and the governance mandate that we have to place it. When we put all this input into this preliminary phase, then this is the output we get. We get a good architecture framework with a good vision where we have our plans in the place, and then it goes to a architecture vision. This is going to come up in a couple of days, in a similar way, where we are going to blow up and we are going to discuss on the basis of examples, the industry example that I have worked throughout. So let's go back to the mind map. So we discussed about a bank where we have the preliminary phase implemented. Now, when this preliminary phase was implemented and it took about 3 months, and the amount of work which was saved was almost nearly about 12 million. Okay, where as soon as the project or the requirement is received and people have this 2 liners 3 liners in their mind, they just start blowing up. Okay, let's put the dashboard page. They want to see the output instead of rushing into that. If we go with this model, okay, again it depends on bank to bank, requirement to requirement. I'm not sure what are your domains, but if you keep your domain and the time in your hand, you can just do a fantastic job. Now in this banking example we saw yesterday, the 6 phase architecture of everything model, right? In those phases, business and the security are the more which is required than the other all 4 phases. And that's the best out of the gist in the preliminary phase. So this is about the preliminary phase. Any questions here? If anyone has a question, you can just ask me at this point of time.
No questions, ma'am. It's going good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to the second part of today's session, which is architecture principle. We all know what are the principles. Principle are the set of rules or the standards that we lay out, and why they are important is, let's take an example. When we go on a road, why do we need a traffic signal? Because what if there are car coming from all the 4 directions and they bump into each other? No one will be able to go and there will be a traffic jam, and that's why we need an set of rules or the guardrails which will take care, why we need to do it in a form of process. When it is part of a process, it becomes more structured, and everyone gets a fair chance to go through it, and everyone gets whatever input they have given, they will get the output. That's the basic idea of the architecture principle. Now, let's look at the extension. Yeah, so in this part, we have enduring, why the principles are important, because they support the longevity, the stability, and the consistency. Like, I have seen with so many decades, the traffic signals are still the same, whether it is in US or in India or in UK or anywhere. So that's what it talks about. When we have set of principle or set of standards, it is always there. Same in the case of the architect area, like the TOGAF, you take the Archimate. They are going from so many decades because the people who use them and the people who know how to have a stable environment, how to go process by process and have a legit output, then some output as per their experience. Yes, experience does count, but when it goes with the tool, with the set, you know how to have the implementation and how to use the tool, then it becomes more powerful than just having the experience. Here in the quadrille, we also discussed that the set of principles are important. We also define our boundary, that this is the context of the EA area, this is the context of the technical team, this is the context of the business area, this is the context of the data area, this is the context of the strategy area. So these kind of boundaries and these kind of context becomes very, and it plays a very important role as well. And before doing any requirement, there is another important principle of the mission. If we don't have a mission, so in a bank, we have taken this requirement, but what are we going to do? Our mission should be driven by the vision which is supporting what CEO is saying. Like, I want to impact 2 lakh users by implementing this feature. So that is the impact that we want to achieve. It's about impacting life. It's about people who are using the application in the loans and the borrowing area. It is about impacting how easy we are going to make their life in the loans and the borrowing area, how difficult it was when they were doing the loans and the borrowing, the manual processes, and they have to go to bank for several times, they have to repeat it. In India, it is a lot more than in the US, but that's what the manual process takes a toll, whether it is in any country. But when it is supported and powered by KYC and the other powerful tools and the vendor management, then it becomes like impacting so many lives. So we need to have a very clear mission, that why we want to help these people, and by having my skills, my capabilities, my expertise with technology, how am I going to impact the set of people? That should be our mission. If we are going to just lift and shift and what everyone else is doing in the world, it becomes meaningless. We need to be purposeful. We need to have a powerful thought in order to drive the mission. We need to have alignment in order to have and supporting the vision coming from the CEO. We need to have a strategy. I'm going to take a separate session on it. Strategy should be such a strong that the end result should be visible to an EA, rather than having and developing and sitting and iterating and having the constant war and the governance meeting to how to mitigate the risk and whatnot thing. If you have a powerful strategy, you will be able to envision what is going to be the output and how it is going to look like. With the exception, if something goes out of the track, then how you can handle it, how you can deal it. Do we have those kind of capabilities? If not, then how can we have those kind of people and the capabilities in the team? So you should have your main plan, your plan B, your plan C, so we can have a powerful strategy in the place. And purpose, of course, the purpose talks about why we are doing it, what we are doing it, and why we are best in the industry, in the banking domain. So that's about the mission. If we have a vision, a mission which is driving these three, then the delivery becomes far more simple, and it becomes a very effortless, and it comes very naturally. So we need to have a clarity of these aspects a lot. Now here there is a pharmacy and the AOE all domain. Again, these are the value adds. So today there are three values which you will take home in this session. Another example is Pharmax or the pharmacy example, and the other is a AOE. Here in this case, only the business and security is supported. Here in this case, the AOE framework, all the domains, business, data, security, and experience, all these six areas are being used in the pharmacy example. Let's say there is a pharmacy and there they call as data as a asset. Okay, so when they were doing the project on the pharmacy, they had developed a project where they had three different databases in the silos. Okay, they had a lot more issues, like the leadership issues, because it is never a technology problem. Let me put it this way, it is never the frameworks that we use, or it is never the competency. When there is a leadership where they have internal clashes, okay, it's like whatever I do, it's my way highway in every project like that, then it becomes the systems don't talk to each other later, but people stop talking before that. So it is more of a people driven than the system driven. So in this case, when they did this project in the pharmacy domain, they created three different silos which were not talking to each other, and it had a lot other issues. So this example is talking about data is an asset, and three siloed data lakes stop means they stop talking to each other, and it did not go through well, the one which I gave the previous banking example versus this one. Now in this area, when it happened, okay, the main thing which happened was a technical depth. So let's say we have three leaders. Okay, three leaders are doing the same requirement, but three of them are person A, person B, person C. They all are thinking that I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. So instead of and three of them are having different requirements, but they are like, no, I will do it by myself. So they end up doing everything in their team. Okay, so let's say there is this loans and the borrowings, or the pharmacy example. Okay, let's take pharmacy example. There are these three areas of medicines. There is a area of having the vaccines, and maybe there is a area of having some wellness medicine. Okay, now in these three areas, they have to prepare for their feature: wellness, vaccines, and the proper medicines. In the CVS, how we get it through our SSN and everything. So when these three leaders were asked to prepare the requirements, they all considered to make other features which were already common. Okay, so they were creating their own login registration. An example I am giving, their own workflows, without doing a due diligence that there is already something common in place, or they could have talked to each other and prepared some common thing, a common platform where all three can use. But no, I am the one who is going to do everything. So like this, all three of them created those duplicate application. Yes, they created the unique ones, but they created duplicate features as well. That becomes a technical debt when you have a duplicate things for the same thing, because you keep doing the same stuff. Then the second most disadvantage is the data silos. Your data also, like, it is not going to talk to each other. Why? Because first, the systems are not connected, and the second, so let's say there is a table which is shared between two or three features, like the leader 1, 2, 3 in the wellness and the medicines and the vaccine section. The tables are shared. When the tables are shared, our efficiency and calling out, whether it is API or any other system, it becomes slower. Those data silos, it doesn't talk, the complexity increases. So like those kind of a problem happens, and the duplicate infrastructure also is also there. So when it comes to our job, our role, sometimes we have to put a lot of things aside to have something common in place. So when this EA sits with the team and sees that there is nothing common or there is something common in place, then this leaders and the EA needs to have a very good friendship. Until unless we won't be able to deliver what we are supposed to. So when they have a good friendship, then they have a common infrastructure. They have a common data lake or the data side where all three systems can talk to each other. And in the production, we are able to deliver successful. So this was a pharmacy, a data silos issues which had happened in the past. So when they had this issue, it happened for almost 9 months. And when someone came in a place, that person literally had to redo a couple of things. In 2 months, it was a little behind, but that person prepared a proper infrastructure, put commons in place, and removed all this redundant stuff and only kept the required ones. So in 6 to 8 weeks, this all took time. It took 2 months almost after this initial phase, and then the project was delivered in another 9 months. Otherwise, this was supposed to go for very long time because people were, making the systems in these silos. So this was about the pharmacy. This is the second value add, and the third value add is since this in this all the business, data, application, technology, security, and experience. All of these domains are being used. If you compare this one and the one which we discussed before, right? Here only business and security is being used. And here all of the phases are used. So when a person doesn't know anything, that person will go into all the other phases. That person will have less wisdom or less experience or whatsoever the reason is. That person will not be picky and that person will do everything. Yeah, you can think through whether this can be used or not. That is another thing. But this is how it happens. So this is the session for today for having first value add on the banking example, second value add is on the pharmacy, and the third is how all domains are used when you don't know anything. And yeah, so I open this forum for the Q&A. I would love to hear the questions on this topic or your walk of life in your journey.
Okay. Just a small question, and actually, it's a practical question per se. Like, how do you convince the non-architects or the non-TOGAF knowing people about developing this business capability matrix itself in the first place? Like you mentioned that there are a lot of redundant capabilities in different systems. So I face this actually a problem a lot in my work. So when I say that we should develop these capabilities, uh, by develop I mean we should note down what are the capabilities in the existing systems and then remove the redundancies, remove the
Right,
duplicate.
right.
Then that seems like a useless activity to the bosses. So how do you convince that this is actually the most useful activity, the most fruitful thing that we can do? How do you convince that to the again to the non-TOGAF people, madam, to the
Yeah, yeah.
non-TOGAF people?
So I have a question again. If something is useful and not useful for the management, that means they are putting this in the bucket which is low critical. Okay, so when I mean by low critical, so always the bosses have the high critical, which is the highest visibility. The second is a medium kind of a critical, and the third is a low critical. So lot of banks, okay, are in a place where they are still using Java 6, which is like outdated from so many years. We don't have even support for that. Or if you want support, I don't know what people do. So in this case, if I were you, I would go to the boss and ask what is critical for you. Okay. And then the boss will say, this ABC applications are critical. This other reporting, I'm just giving example. I don't know. These applications are not. Then just go and target that and then find out with the lot of tools are there why there is a redundant code or why there are redundant application, and then calculate the money, the maintenance of the developer, and what time and efforts are gone by your team, and then say we do not need this. And another top up I will give is I'm not sure you are in India or US, but find a season where there is not much traffic of the clients and the delivery. And in that particular traffic, let's say Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatsoever the thing is, sit in that and then remove those stuff. Okay. So that will become your one of the KPI that you achieve because you save that cost and you also removed this redundant stuff. So that way you become valuable in eyes of your boss, and you also take care of the technical debt which is there in the organization. But you have to so I'm not sure what and also the one factor I would say, you need to have trust with the boss. Okay, now there are a lot of factors which actually the plan which I mentioned, it also has a pillar of trust, a rapport with the boss. So for that, if it is there, then this thing will happen. If it is not there, then you have to build that trust. And once you have a build that trust with your manager, because if your manager, so let's say an example, if your manager um, is a energy center. Okay. And what I mean by energy center is when a boss is having an energy center, that means that boss is also connected to another energy center in this organization, which means all the critical work is flowing to this boss. If he has a critical work, then only we are going to receive a critical work of this technical depth. If he is not, then you have to strategize your way to reach to your boss for this critical work. In order to reach to your boss for the critical work, you need to have your trust and your rapport. Then the boss will give you the critical work. And there might be other factors also, like competition would be there and lot of things, but this is the way that you get to the critical technical depth work.
Sure, got it.
Does
Thank
that
you.
make
So,
sense?
yeah, the main thing I picked from all these things was uh, ultimately you have to convert your technical issues into some kind of financial issue for the bosses. Unless
Yes.
you show them the where the money is going and actually where the money is getting wasted and
Leaked.
future risk leaked. Yeah, that is the perfect word, leaked, and the future possible risks that are
Yes.
like you mentioned Java 6. So that like literally no one cares about whether it's Java 6 or not unless RBI comes says that you have to upgrade everything. There is some master direction from RBI that EOL minus one, N minus one technology should be used. Until
Right.
then, nobody cares about all these things.
Right.
Like literally, in my experience, Indian banks are running on compliance. They're not running on
Yes.
business. They're not running on business strategies. And like you mentioned, that they're not going for changing people's lives or even for value addition.
Right.
They're literally running for compliance purpose only.
And money,
So
money, money.
actually, many banks don't even care about money. They have so much money. In fact, I'm sure all the banks have money, but a lot of things, like we mentioned, like if they're duplicacy of capabilities, duplicacy of applications, even they don't care. If it is running perfectly fine, then it's good.
Yes.
Especially when there is a third-party vendor involved, that we call the SI partner, system integrator partner. So
Right.
some US product you integrate, some TCS, Infosys, whoever comes integrates inside the bank, it's becomes very difficult to manage. So you have to show that picture to the bosses. So anyways, thank you, that was very clear.
Okay. I hope I was able to help you in this session.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay. I think that's all for today. Thank you for joining and see you tomorrow for another session. Thank you so much. You have a
Yeah.
wonderful evening ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Diksha. Bye. Yeah.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.